Hi. Games are ours, right? I mean, it's the stuff that we grew up with. That special moment when you first discover the magic of games. It's our Super Mario, our Tetris. It's ours, right? Well, Twitter started out as this quirky little app that was about keeping tabs on your friends, right? But now it's defining the future of communication for millions. We've entered an era of the virtual, and there's no going back. Virtual life is fast approaching, and we are transitioning to it in every single way. And it's important that we get it right and that we do as best as we can. So, games has taken that form. It's taken the newest form of play. And play has been around since the very beginning. Play is sacred. It's been there since the dawn of time. And it's been the way that we grow and we learn and we experience. And so games are not ours. And they're not our nostalgia. In fact, our nostalgia is unfortunately nothing more than a tiny sliver of play expressing itself in the virtual. But now it is our responsibility to explore all of play. Because if we don't, well, we'll be leaving a lot behind. In a world where 90% of games explore 10% of human experience, we have a real problem. It's up to us to ensure the diversity of play remains intact. And yeah, I mean, when I grew up, I used to think indie games was all about, well, being unique and different, you know? I thought it was being quirky. But that time is over. We used to think these things because we didn't know better. Now we know that we are building the future for everybody. And so indie games is not the quirky niche thing. It is simply play expressing itself in the virtual world. And its natural form is diversity and the fullness of what it can be. But that's not what we've been giving it. So how do we get here? Programming was seen as a woman's job back in the day, until it became a higher paying job and women were pushed out of the tech industry. That had a knock-on effect of home computers, when they arrived, being seen as a male thing, not a female thing. When the game crash of 1983 happened, Nintendo had to choose whether to put their new console that they've taken from the electronic aisle and wanted to put into the toy aisle. They had to choose between the blue or the pink aisle. And they chose the blue. Everyone followed suit after that. And we see a stark difference between the way things were and how they became. Where adverts showed men and women, boys and girls playing games, we see very sexist adverts, you know, showing women in bikinis presenting games to little boys. And well, after that we have this very small sliver of human experience being expressed through games. And so that continued. The next generation after that, they grew up with the games that they grew up with, and they copied it, and as we all do, and they repeated the cycle. And these companies grew into AAA companies, and they were able to make the games with the highest production value. And so they bred an era of consumers who, for the most part, only know games to be that. And so the original truth of what games are became lost. And games became identified as this small experience. And only that. People like to think that the market goes for what it wants. But if the market doesn't have anything better, it can't choose. Now, moving forward, how do we change this? How do we stop this cycle? Well, this change is going to be the hardest for men. Not all men. Some people already know about all of this. Some people already know that, games is the diversity of human experience in virtual form. Others don't know that yet. They just know that they want to make something different. Well, there are others who don't understand this concept at all. And I say it's hardest for men. Well, it is true that everybody inherently has the equal capability to explore human experience through games, obviously. Men have it especially difficult because they were given a small room through conditioning about this is what men do and this is what men are supposed to like. And the room was made very comfortable for them. It catered for them. The game industry at large catered for men. And so to them, everything seems fine. They don't even realize the massive expanse that they are missing and that they are being withheld from. And so they keep making the same games over and over again. So how do we go about changing all of this? Well, we can start by not making games based off other games. That's a good start. Then we can draw from human experience. And I find that it's very useful to specifically look at anything that you find meaningful to you, anything that you've experienced in any way. And then don't try to make that a puzzle game or an RPG or a shooter game. Don't do that. Simply look at that experience as hard as you can, and as hard as you can try to create that experience. Don't get distracted by genres. And you will find that even though we are restricted by the building blocks that we have available, you will find that you will be making new building blocks faster than you thought possible. And you will find that you assemble building blocks in ways that you didn't know was possible. Because you're no longer focusing on trying to emulate a genre. You're focusing on emulating an experience. And that leads to something special. Now, another way to do it, and if you're so concerned about if this messing landscape of games really exists, imagine it like a light, right? It's around us right now, and all the games that we know are in this light. And there's this dark expanse before us that's unlit. And we don't know what there is, and we don't know how big it is. So the way to know how big it is I use a technique where I say that games is like a parallel dimension. it contains everything that our world contains and more. But it doesn't contain it in that exact way. Of course, there's limitations with game development. Things are different. We want to entertain or do things in a much more limited fashion, or with time restrictions or restrictions of capturing the player. However, they exist. And so we can make points in that darkness by saying, well, let me look at a human experience and ask myself, does this truly exist in a game form? And if no, then that's somewhere that lies out of this lit experience that we have. Lies somewhere out there in the darkness waiting to be explored. That is the missing landscape. And I've come to realize that that landscape is vast and more bigger than we could have possibly imagined. Now, if you still don't believe this, look at movies. Look at books. Look at the themes and the emotions and the ideas being explored there. There are a lot of them. And barely enough of them are being explored in games. This is important. And this needs to change. So, another final point is that marketing, one might be wondering, well, how do I sell this? Well, I've found that people can connect, and they don't need to connect on an existing genre. They can connect on a human experience. If you have an experience that people know and they've experienced and they feel it within themselves, you can make a game about that. And you can draw upon that and refer to that. And that's how they know they can relate to that. I do believe that works. Thank you so much.